Welcome back, everyone. Staring from Mysterian Gaming here. Today, we're running
The majestic
Darkheart Thicket.
Mythana has become befouled by the nightmare. Search her out and put her out of her misery.
And you see, there's actually a world quest currently active for this one, Mythana, which we're going to do as well. But as I was saying, we are in Darkheart Thicket, one of the beginning dungeons you can get access to when you hit the Burning Legion expansion. As you can see, there's some... I'll explain a few things as we get to them, but we're going to make our way through here.
Those who challenge me only speed themselves to an agonizing death.
So says the shadow of Xavius.
Be still, worm. I will deal with you shortly.
Now you can see, Mythana right there is more or less a friend's Nightclaw. She's the objective for the world quest. And you see there's a bunch of nightmare druids and beasts in this area. We're gonna make our way through here. You basically would kill those two groups here. Take this little pathway here to shortcut where you end up fighting. If you keep left to the most, you'll end up just fighting this group. But we should be able to avoid it doing my level. But more or less, this is just a simple burn. You don't have to worry about any special abilities other than maybe a bleed or two. Other than that, we're just going to take her out real fast. There are a lot of skinnables in here, and there's also a quest related to skinning for Legion in here on one of the bosses. We're making our way to the first boss, which will be the Archdruid. But that doesn't, you have to kill these two grizzlies in order to open up the way to the boss. And once you get up to that little field there, the boss will spawn in and kill.
Defilers, I can smell the nightmare in your blood. Be gone from these woods, or suffer nature's wrath.
As you see, the Archdruid is overcome by the nightmare. Here we go. Bringing up the Archdruid. Not even going to try to pronounce the name. As you can see, it's not that hard here. It's just a few abilities. You got Nightfall, which pulls fragments of a nightmare corrupted star from the sky, doing area damage to anyone that gets hit by it, doing shadow damage. An Abomination, which crawls towards the prey, leaving puddles of corruption in the wake. You just don't want to stand them. Primal Rampage, takes you to be aware of, is when the Archdruid bashes all enemies in a cone in front of them. Does physical damage and knocks them back. And then the Archdruid will charge forward, doing physical damage and knocking anyone back in that way. Now, Grievous Sleep. This is when the Archdruid leaps at the enemy, doing physical damage and causing a grievous tear. Then the Archdruid will leap back, inflicting physical damage and causing another grievous tear. Now, this is a bleed effect that will stay on you until you are healed past 90% of your maximum health. Additional, if you're a druid in here with one of the legendary weapons, or even a transmogrification of one of the legion weapons, you'll get additional dialogue from the Archdruid. We're going to activate this fight,
Defilers,
and you'll see the abilities.
So it is you who have befouled these woods with the nightmare.
Here is the druid's cat form.
I am the vessel of nature's fury!
And there is the bear form in the charge.
I will bleed the nightmare from you!
Archdruid tried to leap at me, and as you can see, the Abomination is behind trails of corruption. You want to kill the ad so you don't have so much of a trail, because standing inside it, you take Nightfall, which is shadow damage every 3 seconds. Now we're just gonna light up the druid real fast.
The nightmare clouds my thoughts no more.
A fluke. Savor it and pray you do not face me next.
They will be more than prepared. For your true power rests in the nightmare.
Silence, weakling. When you open your mouth again, it will be to cry for mercy.
Sorry with the coughing, I'm just a little under the weather, but I need to get the video done. But now when I believe the additional dialogue for Drew has the artifact weapon or the X-Mog of it. I believe when he dies is when you get the additional. And also during the fight, you'll get it depending on the weaponry, I believe. And as you can see, we got corrupted blossoms and dryads. Herbalism, you're able to harvest these blossoms. We're just going to try to make our way through here to get to Oakheart. Hopefully without pulling anything. Now sometimes you'll have a world quest where you actually need to be back here to kill the objective. Sometimes it's a giant hydra plant that is tucked right into this corner around here. Or also sometimes in this building, there will be a cache that you can loot for additional resources. Now we're going to make our way here. Now, to show you that we can actually use herbalism here, we're actually on a character who is my herbalism. And as you can see, you sometimes you get dream leaf and a ursing seed. Now these seeds here are more or less are the most common in Legion. And in Legion, each area has its own specific type of plant you can pick. Happens to be that here in Bashara is Dreamleaf. Now as you see, we actually have Spoils of the Nightmare here. We're going to kind of try to get in there to go get it real fast so I can show you where one of the spawn points is. As we're making our way down. This is really the first time I've ever seen spawn here. Normally it spawns inside that building. But as you can see, we get some order resources and some stuff we can sell for gold. Now, we're going to head back to Oakheart and get that boss fight to get initiated. But in order to have Oakheart attackable, you'll need to take out all these nightmare dwellers first. Which back then, if you were ballsy, you would try to get all 5 of them in one shot. But yeah, when I tanked, I was always careful. Didn't want to cause issues. Now, as you can see, Oakheart will awaken. And there we go. Now let's bring up Oakheart's abilities. As you can see, it's a corrupted ancient. Now Oakheart has Crushing Grip, which he'll pick up and crush the target, doing nature damage every second for 5 seconds. Then he'll throw the target he has on the ground, inflicting nature damage to anyone in the area. Uproot is when he calls for Viathorn saplings to erupt from the ground to attack nearby enemies. Also, with the Strangling Roots will emerge under nearby players. If you stay in them, you'll take physical damage every second, and you'll be rooted in position for a minute or till it is destroyed. Now, Shattering Nerfs is when he stomps on the ground around him, doing nature damage and knocking anyone back. And Nightmare Breath is when he inflicts fire damage in a frontal cone, and then it does an additional burn for fire damage every 2 seconds for 6. We're going to initiate the fight so you can see.
Bark worse than my bite. I will crush you to splinters.
Because I'm high level, that didn't send me flying back. But these are the strangling thorns. As you can see the roots. My high level kind of made me immune to the rooting that time. But they slowly die over time. Here's Crushing Grip. Now if anyone was there where I landed, they would have took damage. Let's see if I can get rooted this time.
I will crush you to splinters.
Nope. Here's Nightmare Breath. We're gonna end this boss, but if no one, I believe if no one's caught within those tangling roots, he could actually make that become a sapling.
Uprooted.
So we're gonna leave that be, and as you can see, if no one takes that, you end up getting ads.
You will be my campfire.
Back then, honestly, the ads weren't a big deal.
I told you to leave me alone.
Unfortunately, you can't use herbalism on Darkheart, but
A pity you have come this far only to die at the hands of Xavius.
An empty threat. You hold no sway over this realm, Nightmare Lord.
Bold words for a prisoner. Even an echo of my power was enough to overwhelm you.
now as you see, we actually have two paths. The left one will take you to Darkheart, which is the third boss. The right path will actually take you to this Shade of Xavius. So basically it says you can skip the third boss and go right to the last. We're going to go and do the third boss, of course. Now this boss here, if I correctly remember, is actually part of the Legion skinning quest line. So if you're leveling up your skinning, eventually you'll come across that quest where you'll have to come in here and skin this boss. But as you can see, if you remember Onyxia's lair, you don't want to get near the eggs, because they will hatch. Now you want to be aware, this Blood-Tainted Fury has a very nasty knockback. The bloods could just be AoE down there, as you can see. We're going to hopefully get this. See, there it is. If you're caught within that global, you will get knocked back far, and chances are you're gonna get knocked into the eggs and you're gonna end up having additional ass spawn.
I require a target.
Now it doesn't end when you beat him or it or her, whatever you want to call it. As you can see, it'll break down the smaller ones, but there's also a chance that it will reform into a bigger one. Other than that, that's the most dangerous ad, in my opinion, is Blood Elemental on your way to the boss. Now let's just get rid of the blood here. Now if I remember right, you see the big egg back there. I am correctly remembering, I believe that is actually part of an achievement that goes with this boss here. We'll get into that after we explain the abilities. Now, Darkheart, he here has the Breath of Corruption, which does nature damage in a frontal cone that does damage every sec for 2 seconds and reduces armor by 5% for 6 seconds any one hit. Downdraft is where he will flap his wings, pushing enemies away and doing nature damage every 2 for 8 seconds. Now for the Earth-Shaking Roar is when shaking the ground around him, doing nature damage to nearby enemies and causing a cave-in, which will be more or less a puddle on the ground, we'll show you, that will do nature damage every 2 seconds you're in it. Now for the Nightmare Eggs. If you come in contact with one of these eggs, as you can see, they'll spawn a whelp, which will end up making your fight a little bit harder. Get too many, you'll be overwhelmed. That's where downdraft will come into play. That's when he'll actually try to push you into the eggs. You need to fight against the wind, and if you have a movement increasing effect, Ghost Wolf, Sprint, or if you're a Night Fae at this current time, Soul Shape, would actually help you from not getting pushed into the eggs. Now we're going to initiate this fight, and I'm going to go after that big egg right there. Now, as you can see, that egg has spawned a hate spawn abomination. Which has a lot more HP than the Whelpies, which made it a bit more harder because it was a mythic achievement. There was downdraft. Now, as you can see, there's the puddle that you do not want to stand in. Now, that's the problem, too, because with downdraft, you want to make sure you're not getting knocked into that. So, the tank would need to station the boss in order to avoid anyone, unfortunately, going into that. As you can see. As you can see, he is trying to push me into the eggs while taking nature damage. As you can see, Earth-shaking roar again. You would want your tanks to try to keep themselves stationed, not in the center, but close to the perimeter, but not near the eggs. I guess we're not going to get the breath attack. Oh, we are getting the breath attack now. As you see, there is the Breath of Corruption. And as you can see, there's the achievement, is to defeat the boss here after slaying the Hate Spawn Abomination, which is in that big egg. And as you can see, you're able to skin this boss. Now you just simply drop down here and make yourself right into this giant log here and fight your way through a wave of demons in order to get to the Shade of Xavius. We're going to try to bypass most of this if we can. Also got some Bloodseeker bats here, which you can also skin as well. I'm probably going to end up pulling a few things, but... When it comes to that, the demons, the imps go down fast. You just want to be careful of the satyrs here. We're going to LOS here, line of sight. Come a little closer so I can blast you in the face. I'm gonna skin these guys real fast. As you see here is the Shade of Xavius. As for the Shade here, we're going to go over this. Apocalyptic Empowerment. Burning Nightmare Fire empowers Shade here, increasing all damage done by 5. Now the Apocalyptic Nightmare is the Shade will erupt with Nightmare Fire, igniting Sadrazil and inflicting fire damage to nearby players. The Assuring Inferno will rain down fire from above, inflicting additional fire damage it hits. Now, Festering Rip rends the target, leaving an affected wound that does nature damage every 2 seconds And also decreases their healing taken by 15% for 8 seconds. Feeding on the Weak is he'll consume a player's soul, doing shadow damage for every one for 5 seconds. Nightmare Bolt. It launches a bolt of nightmare energy, inflicting shadow damage and applying Waking Nightmare, which is when the target is trapped in a walking nightmare, silenced and pacified unless you are standing nearby one of your fellow players. So basically, if you were the healer and the party was all melee, well, you would have to get into the scrape there with all the melee in order to make sure you're not silenced. Now, Induced Paranoia is when the shade heightens the fears and paranoia of the players. Enemies afflicted by this will take shadow damage and are horrified for 5 seconds if they get too close to any of their fellow players. So, for Walking Nightmare, you want to be near other players, but with Induced Paranoia, you want to stay away. And also, I believe there is another achievement.
I will break you.
Rated here. But I believe I have to get Xavius down to a certain amount of HP for this to trigger. We're going to let this slowly burn. As you see, Feed on the Weak activated. Ah, yes, that was the achievement. As you can see, every time he gets hit by one of these fire bolts from the sky, he gets his apocalyptic empowerment. Now, I believe the achievement requires you to get him to 10
You will waste
stacks.
away slowly, painfully.
Which we're going to try to do. Staying in the center area is a very safe bet to get this achievement. Now that he hit 10, we're going to try to finish this fight and see if the achievement unlocks.
No,
You have done
no.
well.
I
The Dream
refuse
Weavers are in
to
your debt.
accept.
Well-earned victory. We must, however, stay vigilant. Deep inside the nightmare, Xavius remains unvanquished. The enemy you fought here was merely his shadow.
Now, if you want to
May
get out of
you
here, you
grant
can
us
either
strength.
hearth or be teleported out by Mafurian. But, as I said, the achievement we unlocked was burning down the house, which, as you can see, defeat the Shade of Xavius while he has 10 stacks of apocalyptic empowerment. Back then, we would have to get him to roughly, I want to say back then was 5 to 7%, while the tank ran him around into those fireball puddles. And as you can see, that empowerment doesn't stick around for very long, so you would have to be prepared to burn out the last little bit of percentage to get this achievement, which nowadays is pretty easy to acquire. But as we are done here, I'm just going to say this is Astarion from Astarion Gaming, asking you to please like and subscribe to my videos. Also go check out my Twitch channel. Until then, I'll see you all in the next video.